Hi, I'm Carrie, and welcome to episode 12 of the Sego Fibers Podcast. Wow, it's been a while, hasn't it? So this is a knitting podcast where I talk about all the things I've been knitting, working on, finishing, things I'd love to work on, even some yarn dyeing here and there, random crafty stuff like that. Let's see. Man, I am out of practice. It has been probably a couple months since my last episode. Things have just been so busy since the end of summer and into the start of fall. It's like today it's November 4th, I think. Anyway, but the time has flown, and anyway, I'll catch you all up on life stuff towards the end, but we'll do all the knitting and yarny goodness stuff first, and believe me, there's a lot. Yeah, so things have just been so packed lately that I just didn't have the brain space or the kind of peace to sit down and film a podcast. And this week is the first time in a couple months that I've felt like, oh, I can breathe. And so I'm really happy to sit here and chat with you guys and show you what's going on. If you're a new viewer, welcome. I'm glad you're here. If you're a returning viewer, I'm glad you're back. I hope you have something hot and lovely to drink, a snack, and of course a good project to work on. Alright, I guess I'll start with what I'm wearing. I wish I could say I made my sweater. I really like it. I wish I could make it. I'm sure one day I will, but I really like this lace pattern there. I got this on sale a couple years ago at Loft, and I don't know, it's one of my favorites. It was my first of this type of color, and it's just, I really like it. But I did make, however, this headband, and I'll take it off and give you some close-ups. But the reason I made this headband was because I got my hair cut. You may have noticed if you've seen me before. And at first, when I got my hair cut, I didn't like it. I was not a fan. I went home and cried. It's like, oh no. And I don't know if you've ever had that situation where it's like, the only way to fix this is to wait for it to grow out. At least that's kind of how I felt about it. But in order to make it a little better in the meantime, I decided to make a headband to kind of help the situation. So this, I am definitely going to have to reference my notes because I forget, and there's a lot. So this is the Augusta lace scarf, and obviously it's not a scarf, it's a headband. This particular pattern actually has 3 patterns within it, which is really cool. And so I'll just give you some close-ups. I really love the lace. It's beautiful. One of, like, if you're into details, this is all about the details. Everything is super clean. Here's the back. And I love the edges. The edges are probably like, that's the part I was most impressed by. It's like, oh wow, she thought of that super well. Like, it works. And, oh, I should say it's by Bella Helms. So I'll include all that. All the information, if you're curious, is in the description below. And I'll try and put titles and stuff here too. But yeah. Anyway, I'm a big fan. The yarn is Cloudborne Fibers Filo, and the color is Modeling Clay. I believe this yarn is discontinued, but anyway, I had it in stash forever, so I thought I would use it. It's a single ply. It's a mix of wool and silk. I'm not sure what kind of wool, but yeah, I think the silk content is really nice. It has I-cords for the ties in the back, and as you saw, it just makes a little bow, and it fits so well. It was the first, anyway, I'm just jumping all over here, so pardon, but the I-cord, it was the first time I'd ever done an I-cord. I didn't know, like I'd never seen someone do one before. I didn't know how to do it, but just reading the pattern and like not looking up any help videos or anything, it was super easy to do. And I was like, oh, that's how you do it. That's pretty awesome. So yeah, I'm extremely impressed with this pattern. I definitely want to make more. I want to do the really long version that you wrap like a couple times and around your neck, really cute. I think that'd be nice, and like a super soft yarn. This isn't the softest, so I wouldn't use it for that, but for a headband it's perfect. And let's see, when I first started, you start out on the I-cord starting, and then it kind of widens into the lace section. And for that lace section part, I was having to read the chart like line by line each time, back and forth, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna take forever. I never have to read a knitting pattern line by line. Am I ever gonna get this? Is this going to be intuitive? But as soon as I got to the part where it flattens out and it's the same, and I realized like, oh, after this many rows, I do another lace thing, and this many rows, there's another lace thing. Then it became really intuitive and I didn't have to read the chart. And so that was really nice. And so now I know it's like, okay, if I make the really long version of the scarf, I'll pay attention to the beginning, but when it reaches its full width, then all that's a breeze. So I'm looking forward to that. So if you try it, it might be a bit of a slog at the very beginning, but it's worth it, and it's enjoyable in the middle, and it's worth it in the end. It was also a really quick pattern. I think I did it in about 2 afternoons. It may have bled into like a little bit of a third afternoon to finish, but had I had like dedicated time, 2 afternoons would have been totally fine, and it barely takes up any yarn. Let's see, this headband weighs like 14 grams of fingering weight. And I think the pattern said, I'll put a correction here if I say this wrong, but I think it said like 55 or so yards. And so like total scrappy project if you have leftovers or some way to use like a mini skein that you get that's really nice and you're not sure what to do with. This is a really good pattern for that. One of the reasons I picked it was that it's really flat, because I wanted a headband that I could wear indoors comfortably, that it was really light, that I could forget about basically, and it wouldn't, it's not meant for keeping me warm, it's meant just for, decoration. It's an accessory. And so there's lots of really beautiful like double thick ones, but those are really kind of bulky and feel like more outdoorsy to me, and I didn't want to be too hot. So yeah, that's why I picked this one. It's nice and thin, and it kind of has like, I like the boho vibe, and I actually don't mind it when my hair kind of poofs out in the back. It kind of gives like the more relaxed, casual kind of boho thing that I like. Yeah, I've always appreciated the boho look, but I've never been able to pull it off. But I feel like with this, maybe it's a step in that direction. I don't know. All these like fashion dreams that are unattainable, but you never know. So that's what I'm wearing. And then as for something random to just kind of throw in there, I have this lovely collection of houseplants over here that I just want to briefly talk about. So this summer, actually last episode, you met Michelle, one of my sister-in-laws, and my other one, Kristen, her hobby is houseplants. And she literally has like over 1,000. I'm not kidding. Like some of them are like the little succulent cactus things, but other ones are like the big bushy everything, and she has them beautifully all over her house. She has a really open and airy house, and so she just has them kind of like trailing everywhere and in the corners, and it looks really tasteful. And you would never guess that there's literally 1,000 plants, but there are. And anyway, she's moving, and so she's been having like sales and whatever to try and sadly get rid of most of her plants. She's taking a few of her most precious ones with her, but she gave me these to take with me. And let's see if I get the names right. This one is really cool. It has like these white spots on it. And this one's the Begonia Maculata. And this beautiful one, I really wanted to say, okay, let's talk about the elephants in the room because that's kind of a podcast thing. The main reason I wanted to say that was because this is an elephant ear. That's kind of a bad joke. Oh well. It's a Hilo Beauty elephant ear. And then this one, that little guy right there. Let's see. Oh, it's backwards. There you go. That's the Calathea rattlesnake. And that cool one in the back, that is there. Purple and green, that's two plants in the same pot, but they're both Oxalis triangularis. Apologies if I'm not saying that right, but these are just really fun plants. I'm pretty hit and miss when it comes to keeping house plants alive, but I've had these for 2 months and so far they're doing fine. I'm trying not to overwater. I think that's the worst thing. This one is really fun because depending on the time of day, its leaves are like either really flat, like almost pointing down, or they're like pointing like way straight up, or they're just somewhere in between. But yeah, so that one's rather active, so I just kind of glance over to see like, oh, what are you doing now? If any of you are houseplant people, let me know, and let me know your favorites. What do you like? Or have you just had total trouble keeping plants alive? I'm pretty 50-50, but I'm holding out for these guys. And then as a nod to fall, we've got some pumpkins. I just picked those up from the grocery store, but I thought they were really, really cute. All right, so to continue with finished objects, I made this headband and I actually made another one. This one is the Syreeni headband by Ronja Södersved, and I really like her patterns. Please go check her out. She has amazing, beautiful accessory patterns. As soon as I saw her mittens with the same cable design, it's the Syreeni series, I was like, wow, that is like the ideal perfect cable pattern that I've ever seen for mittens. Like when I think of the perfect cable mittens, those. And so I definitely want to make a pair of those. I haven't yet, but I plan on doing that. But since I was in the hunt for headbands, I got her headband pattern with this cable pattern. I love it. The one she made is not so floofy. I mean, it is floofy, but it's not like, I used a different yarn. So mine's extra puffy and I really like it. Yeah, this is kind of what I mean by like the thicker headbands, because you knit in the round and then you do this cool twist at the end as you sew it together. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. I'll see if I can try it on. It might be slightly snug, but I wanted it to be more snug than loose because I figure it'll stretch out as I wear it and I can always block it if I need to. I haven't even blocked it yet. I didn't think I needed to, but I just love how like ready for the ski slopes it looks, kind of a thing. I don't ski, unfortunately. I would love to try, but anyway, I do cross country, so I could wear it then. Yeah, it's kind of blowing out, but I'll switch it off again. Oh, my hair's going through the ringer today. Anyway, so yeah, the yarn I used is alpaca. It is by Blue Sky Fibers, and this is their brushed Suri DK. And the colorway is whipped cream. I got this yarn in March 2021, and It was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and it's a really beautiful it's a really beautiful place. It's right at the Tetons, and there's snow and cabins and everything. Anyway, so Nathan took me there as a treat for my birthday, and we got to stay at a cabin and all sorts of things, and they had a yarn store there. I'll look it up and put the name of the yarn store there if you want to check it out. Anyway, I got this while we were there, and so it's kind of like a memento keepsake from that, and so I'm glad to have finally used it, and it's like a perfect application for that sort of thing. But while we were in the store, I saw that they had a sample knitted up with that yarn, and it was a hat made with a 50-gram skein. Yeah, this comes in 50 grams. And I was like, oh, so you can do like a whole hat with one skein, so that's pretty nice. And, so I only got one. And then it just kind of sat. I was like, oh, I'm not quite sure what to do with it. I love the idea of a white floofy hat. But then this whole headband thing came around, and I was like, oh, that is the application. And at first I wasn't quite sure if I would have enough yarn for it. After reading the, yardage estimates or something. But I said, I'll give it a try. And it totally worked. I didn't need to fear. It used 39 grams, and so I have 11 grams left. Like, I don't know about you, but because it's so big and poofy, this looks like way more than 11 grams. But such it is. Anyway, I love how puffy it is. And oh yeah, I think the makeup of the yarn was kind of interesting. What was it? So it's 67% baby Suri alpaca, 22% fine merino, and 11% bamboo. So I'm guessing the bamboo is the core that kind of holds everything together, but it's so soft. Definitely recommend it. I would love to knit with it again. My next finished object is one you've seen before, but you only saw it as a whip. These are the rocking chair socks. And these are by Pauliina Karu, or let's see, her last name may have changed, Pauliina Kuunsola. And I got it in a 52 Weeks of Socks book. I really enjoyed knitting these. These were super fun. It felt like they flew off my needles. I don't know why, but they were just, it felt super fast to knit. I really enjoyed them, and they're super squishy. Yeah, so I just really loved them. The yarn is Hedgehog Fibers, and the color is Damsel, I believe. Damsel. Damson is an ink color, which is also really nice. Kind of purpley, but Damsel. There we go. I really like the stripes of texture with the ribbing and the kind of non-symmetrical eyelets. Yeah, I would love to make myself a pair. I think this pattern looks really good with variegated yarn like this, and it also looks really good with solids. So they're all squishy and soft. So these will be a gift knit, and it was also the first time that I did a garter cuff. I've talked about these in other episodes, so I probably won't go into too much detail about them, but yeah, so I'm really happy with these, and I would love to make more. All right, and another thing that happened in the last couple months was all of a sudden Christmas hit me like a train. And so out of nowhere, like I had been like working on like various projects and like life projects, and it's like, okay, get this done, get that done, and then I had a big volunteer thing happen, and it's like, okay, that event ended, and then it's like, oh, now what? What's next? And then it hit me, Christmas. And so then I was thinking, okay, I need to get my Christmas knits done. And like back in January or even last Christmas, I was thinking like, oh, this coming year, I want to knit so many gifts. And so I started pretty early, but then when I had Lydia, I took a knitting break. And So then summer-ish, like I picked it back up, the gift knitting and stuff. And so now it's like, okay, who's left? Gotta get going. And anyway, so this next pair is a gift knit, and this is one of the first times, no, I guess it's the third pair of men's socks I've made, but this is for someone I don't live with, so I can't like have them try it on. But anyway, so it took some starting and ripping out, as I would have Nathan try it on, because I took measurements of a whole bunch of people last year just to see like, okay, how do they compare? And so now I know like, okay, the width is the same as Nathan, but the length is different. That's fine. I can judge like from that. And so anyway, to actually show you the project, this next pair of socks is not a pattern, it's just a garter rib. So one row is knit 2, purl 2, then the next row is knit all the way across, next row knit 2, purl 2, so on. A normal top down 2x2 cuff, heel flap and gusset, and a wedge toe. And so this person is extremely knitworthy that I'm giving these to, and he's requested a couple times some hand knit socks, and he's like, I would wear those so much. That would be awesome. Can you make them crazy? I really want some. I would wear some crazy fun socks. And so I'm like, okay. And so I had a lot of fun trying to come up with a colorway that was crazy, yet also a little bit muted and just kind of fun and seasonal. And so that's where I came up with this. So this is the yarn I made for it, and I went ahead and when I dyed his yarn up for his socks, I went ahead and made some more because I thought it would be fun. And so this is called Pumpkin Season. And so we've got a whole bunch of oranges, and we have some kind of sky blue and different like brown, purple, and yeah, 2 different colors of purple. There's like a mauve and like a grape purple in there, and then also green. And so I called it Pumpkin Season because I was thinking fall, and like if you're going out to a pumpkin patch, you've got like the icy blue sky, the pumpkins here, and then you've got all the vines and the green stuff and the falling leaves and everything there. And then it comes with 3 10-gram minis. And so these are, I think I have 3 sets. So those are in my Etsy shop if you want to check it out. But yep, I was happy with how those came out. It was pretty fun. And they're next to the pumpkins. But so here's the pair of how his size knitted up. I think they do what he was asking. I knew that pooling would be okay for him because he's going for crazy, and I think pooling's a little crazy. And what I found interesting though is like the pooling stripes happen at different times. It's the exact same skein, same yarn, but when I was knitting these, my stress levels were all over the place. And so I think, I'm not sure which ones would have been tighter or looser, but I think I must have been pretty stressed knitting these, and you can tell. But anyway, so to go with like the fun and crazy theme, I made different cuffs. The heels are the same brown, and then the toes are different. And so, yeah. So each sock uses all the colors, but they're in different stuff. But yeah, as part of as part of getting going with this project, I cast on probably a stitch count that would have worked for me because this person has smaller feet. And so I was thinking, oh, we probably have the same size foot. Well, I'll just do one that fits me. And interestingly, like you see how like this has super stripy pooling. When I did it for my stitch count, which I think was like 56 on 2.25 needles, 2.25 millimeter needles. Like there really wasn't pooling. Like I only did this much or so, but it seemed really, the color seemed really integrated, and I thought that would be really cool. So I'm kind of tempted to snag one of the sets for myself and just to see how it works up. And it's super soft and squishy. So anyway, so if you're doing like a men's stitch count, I think this ended up being, was it 64? I didn't look it up. 64, 68. It's one of those. Probably 64. But yeah, so that's how those worked out. I was a bit bummed that I was pretty stressed while I was working on these, but like I just wanted to get, it was definitely like a product knit. And since I had to like rip out and start over so many times trying to get the sizing right, it wasn't the most fun project, which is unfortunate because this person is super knitworthy, and it's like, I wish like I could give him the really fun experience. But oh well, at least he will have the same socks. And one trick I did, since I will be seeing him at Christmas, is I wove in the ends for the top and the heel, but I didn't do it for the toe. That way, like if I need to, he can try them on, and if they're like too long or too short, I can easily just kind of rip this out and adjust it and then do it while I'm there. So that'll be really handy. And then let's see. But not all of the Christmas planning has been like bad or stressful. I've also been really enjoying and excited about some of the like Christmas event planning. And so one thing we're going to try and do is see Handel's Messiah played up at the U. They have this really nice concert hall with, anyway, we saw it a couple years ago, I think. I don't remember when, but it was amazing. It was beautiful, and Nathan has since gotten the score book with all the lyrics and the music notes and everything, so you can follow along while you listen to it. And we're gonna try and go with my parents, and it's like my dad's favorite thing, so I'm really excited. Tickets have not been available for purchase yet, so I'm keeping an eye on the website. It's like, come on, let's get that going. So I'm looking forward to that. And another thing I'm really excited about is we're going to see the Nutcracker this year. Ballet West does an amazing job, and it's at Capitol Theater, and it's really beautiful and fun, and the costumes are amazing, and the sets are beautiful. And last year at Christmas, my mom got me this book because I had told her I really like the Nutcracker and I like going to it a lot. We've been a couple times, but my parents haven't. This is their first time coming, and Nathan's parents are also joining us, so it's going to be like a yes, bring it on Christmas kind of an event. But my mom's heard me talk about it, and so she got me this because I'd also said it's really fun and pretty, but it's a trip. Like, it's a really weird dream, and there's not much sense to it, and it's all over the place, and I'm just like, even seeing it a few times, I'm like, I like it, but I don't get it. So I was really hoping there would be a book somewhere, and she found one, and I'm really curious to see how it lines up with the ballet and how it doesn't. Like, I'm curious to see like where the crossover is and how someone was able to put it into story form. I don't know what came first. I'm not really sure what the history is, but it's The Nutcracker by Alexander Dumas, and there's like illustrations and stuff in here, all classic style. I'm really excited to read it. Like there's tons of illustrations. It's a lot of fun. My goal is to read this before we go, but we go to see the play or the ballet at the very beginning of December. So I need to read it in November at some point. And so I'm really thinking like, okay, I gotta prioritize this. This will be good. But that's one of those things like I'll really be into it once I start, I'm hoping. And I think part of the reason I'm jumping into like Christmas planning and stuff now, or at least even starting a few weeks ago, was because like last year it felt like I couldn't keep up with Christmas and I almost missed the kind of the point. And every year Christmas is a real juxtaposition of really exciting fun things that you're like, yay, I'm so happy about all this stuff. And then also the calm, waiting, thoughtful, pondering side. So it's always both and it's always clashing. And I think that's okay and that's normal, but I want there to be balance. I want there to be both and not one override the other. However, like if the pondering side were to like override the other one, that probably wouldn't be a bad thing. But I really love all the fun, exciting festivity stuff too. It's probably good to have both. Anyway, so this year, or like last year, the thing that really took over was just wrapping. That took so long. Nathan did the bulk of it, but still, it just took a lot of time and took away from the opportunity to have the more quiet, thoughtful times. And so I'm thinking, okay, if I can do as much Christmas planning before Thanksgiving and even like order or put in process like as much as possible, then I would have like the beginning of December to like wrap and everything. And then we'll still have like a normal, all the Christmas festivities and things, but hopefully it won't all be crunched. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking for that. It's like, okay, maybe I can get ahead of the game this year and it won't be crunched and there will be space for thoughtfulness and some intentionality into what we want to focus on. And I think that would be really nice. My next finished object is in the same series of things that you've seen before. I won't go into too much about it, but it is the next Sego Baby Hat. And this is the fingering weight version in the larger size. And yeah, I didn't do any mods for this one other than changing the gauge and the stitch count. But all of the details and techniques are the same as you've seen for the others. I've talked about them more in previous podcasts, but so far this is my favorite gauge. I love it so much. It's dense enough without feeling hard, but I'm confident like it would keep a baby warm, and it's nice and thin, so it's not too bulky. And yeah, this is my favorite so far. I really like it, and it's the same yarn. The Filo and modeling clay, same as this. And yeah, so let's see, this only took, did I weigh it? I thought I did, 35 grams. And so if you have like a 50 grams gain of fingering weight yarn, you could totally make one of these. That's a pattern by me. I'm not quite sure when it will come out. I'm kind of working on the pattern as and when I can, so I'm anticipating like probably early next year sometime. I would love to get it done before Christmas, but that's not gonna happen, let's be honest. So I think that's it for finished objects. Next up is whips with another Sego Baby Hat. So as soon as I finished that one off, I wanted to keep going on some more. And I have another color of the same yarn It's like a white, and like I thought that was nice, but then it's like, I know the yarn, like this particular yarn I actually wouldn't recommend for baby hats because it's not terribly soft. I mean, it's okay, but I wouldn't say baby soft. And it's discontinued anyway, and so I was like, I'd rather be able to recommend something else. And I had heard that Drops was having an alpaca sale on their yarn at Wool Warehouse, and I'm like, they're affordable to begin with, and something like a 40% off sale or whatever it was, like, okay. And so I had a look, and I wrote down the prices just because I was like, yes, this is amazing. And so I'll show you my cast on for it first. But yeah, so this, I'm doing a striped version, and because I knew I would want to do a striped variation anyway, and I figured, well, with some really inexpensive, beautiful fingering weight yarn, I will do it with this. And yeah, so the yarn is Drops Nord. This particular color is, oh man, my notes are all over the place. This is the light beige mix, number 7. It's so pretty. I wish you could touch it. Like, I cannot believe how soft it is. It's like I just want to squish it and touch it all day. Like, it's the alpaca. It's, let's see, what is the content? 45% alpaca, 30% nylon polyamide, and 25% wool. So soft. Before I ordered, I went on Instagram and searched the hashtag Drops Nord, and so many sock projects came up, and I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. Oh my goodness, can you imagine socks made in this gorgeous yarn? I love it. I mean, it has like a really pretty halo, which I think you'll see in the hat better, but so soft. I can already think of so many patterns that would look really good in this yarn. If you haven't searched the hashtag, I recommend it. And then this other color is Blush, number 20. I really like these heathered ones. I think they're my favorite. You can see the halo fuzziness on these a little bit more. And then the third color is not a heathered color, but it was the shade I wanted, so I went for it anyway. And it's called Brick Red, number 21. So all together, I think they're really nice. Yeah, so this is the same gauge as the brown one that I just showed you. It's just a different stitch count to be the smaller newborn size. And it looks so teeny tiny, but it's ridiculously stretchy, and once it's blocked, it'll keep its stretch out. So at least that's the idea. We'll see. If I have to redo it, I have to redo it. But my thinking was, if I make the smallest size, then that means I'll have lots of leftover that I can make socks with. While I was getting in on the whole alpaca sale or the drop sale at Wool Warehouse, I decided to see if there was more yarn that I could make Sego Baby Hats out of. And because they're so inexpensive to make, like 50 grams, a single 50-gram ball to make a hat. And like the Nord was like less than $2. It was like $1.50 per ball. So I was like, yeah, that's great. And then I got more yarn. I got this one, which I was pretty curious about. It's the Drop Soft Tweed. Sorry, these skeins balls have been like really shut into a bag, so the labels have gotten all crunched, but this is the cobblestone color. I think it's really nice. It's not as obviously tweedy as other yarns I've seen with more pronounced neps, but it still gives that same effect. I would definitely get it again. It's really soft, like super soft. It's very nice. Its makeup is 50% wool, 25% alpaca, and 25% viscose. Yeah, so this is like, what is it? Technically like a DK weight. So I'll probably do another DK weight version. It's the same one as like the green Sandnesgarn and the yellow Sandnesgarn hats that I did. Yeah, and I actually sent off the yellow one to a friend who had a baby, so yay! So there's that great one. And then I got a skein of Drops Big Merino. This one wasn't on sale, I don't think, but it was still only $3.50. And the cobblestone was only $2.50. This Big Merino is in the colorway Forget Me Not. It's a little brighter blue than I was hoping. I was hoping for more of like a gray blue, but I think it'll be okay. It's very soft. I also got some Drops Baby Merino and some alpaca boucle, but I forgot to get them out, and they're in the room where my daughter is sleeping. So I'm gonna leave them there. So yeah, I'm having fun making those little baby hats, and I am really looking forward to when I can get all the patterns like fully written with all the different like size and gauge options, and then my hope is to get it looked at by someone who knows what they're doing to make sure everything's like in order, and then I can make it a real pattern. That would be nice. And then as for my next work in progress, we have the Winter Sun Mittens. Is that right? Yes, it is. These are from the Knit Like a Latvian book, and let's see. These would have been a finished object, but I ran out of yarn. Sad. So I have one finished. It's not blocked yet, but I was waiting until both were finished before blocking so I could make sure they were equal. Yeah. This particular design has a different thumb pattern than the body. This is also a gift knit. I'm really happy with how these are coming out. As for, well, I'll show you where the other one is. Oh, don't want to pull those needles. All right. What a mess. Okay, so for the second one, I have the whole body of the mitten done, and I have like a quarter of the thumb, but this is all of the green yarn that I have left. Sad. I can't finish it. So I'm gonna have to get some more. I thought about just doing the thumbs in a different color, but I think I'm just gonna get some more. But anyway, so the yarn I'm using is Jamieson and Smith. The main color is Shetland Supreme Jumper Weight in number 2008, and I think it has a name actually, and it's something like Cat Malay. I don't actually know, but it's this really lovely oatmeal color. It's like a medium beige. I've made a pair of Latvian mittens already, and this version is darker. That one. And then the green is super nice. It's also Jamieson and Smith. This is the 2-ply jumper weight, and it comes in a 25 gram. The Shetland comes in a 50 gram ball, and the color for this one is 29 mix. Yeah, what I like about this one is that it has lots of blues and greens within it all mixed together, so it's really fun. And so there's like some pops of even bits of yellow in there and some more brighter blues. I really love the yarn. They do such a good job of color. So yeah, I haven't ordered more yet. I'm trying to, the yarn is also from a warehouse, and as far as I know, they still have some in the same dye lot, which is like, yes. So that's nice. I actually got a bit scared because they were out of this color when I checked like a week or two ago, and I was like, oh no. Because I'm not sure how much dye lot matters. It really wouldn't matter that much since it's just that little bit of color work, but when I checked more recently, they got more in and magically the same dye lot. So I was really excited about that. And but that's technically all the yarn I need right now. And I don't really want to be like splurging on myself before like this close to Christmas. It's like, because I put like yarn on my Christmas list, so I don't want to be like buying myself presents when other people could be doing that. But so I'm thinking like, okay, well, who can I buy yarn for? It's like, of course I do have answers to that question, but I'm also thinking of like other gifts I could give to this person. So I was like, I'm in a quandary. I'm not quite sure what to do because it feels so silly to buy like a $3 or $4 ball of yarn all the way from England all by itself. It would be really lonely. It needs more yarn to keep company. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. Yeah, so that's the winter sun mittens. I really like them. They were fun to make. Oh, this one definitely required catching floats by far. So some of, like I'll show you in here, some of the rows, I think you can see like there's a bit of green here, but then like all that is in the background color. Like some of the floats for this thing, yeah, you literally go an entire half mitten, like with, like there's a bit of green, one stitch of green here, one stitch of green there, one stitch of green there. And yeah, if you don't catch floats, then it's gonna be a huge mess inside. But yeah, I did before with my other pair that I did, and I caught floats every two. So I would do 2 stitches and then catch, 2 stitches and catch. And it's super like nice inside. You're not gonna catch your rings or anything on here. And I'm wondering if that's probably why I ran out of yarn, because I had the exact amount that the pattern called for, and my gauge is right. They're the same. I don't know. At least I think my gauge is right and they fit. I don't know. But oh well. I wonder if catching floats that often uses up more yarn. Oh well. Alright, my next work in progress is also a gift knit. And like I said, I'm going on a rampage with gift knits right now. And it's mainly because I'm really motivated to do some selfish knitting, and I don't feel like I can peacefully enjoy selfish knitting until these gift knits are done. That's the only reason. It's like I know it'll be worth it at Christmas, like when I give people their gifts and stuff, but it's like I really want to make stuff for myself. Like I want to give you something, but I really want to make sweaters. I really want to make sweaters. That's what I want right now. But in order to make sweaters, I have to make socks. And so I have more socks. And this one is the morning coffee pattern, also from 52 Weeks of Socks. And this is actually a lot more enjoyable than I anticipated it to be, especially considering I'm changing a lot. But yeah, here is the photo. These are also a pair of men's socks. Obviously the pattern can be for whoever, but I'm making the men's size. And I brought out my little stitch marker from Dragon Horde yarn because it's a pumpkin spice latte. You gotta have a pumpkin spice latte. I love them. I had one the other day and it was just the most perfect thing. I'm hoping to get in maybe a couple more. But as for the yarn, I decided to hand dye a mini skein set for it because the pattern calls for a 5 skein mini skein set, so each one is like 20 grams, and they did it in a fade. So I think I went from like a beige to a darker brown, and the person I'm making these for is very outdoorsy and mountainy, loves being outside and doing all sorts of random crazy things. And so I was thinking, okay, like mountain cliffs, rocks, pine trees, green. We'll do like a gray to green fade. And let's see, I might end up having to do some cutaways for this to show you the yarn better. We shall see. And while I was dyeing the yarn for his socks, I decided to throw in another skein's worth of yarn in there. So if I'm doing the work, might as well do another set. And so, okay, warning, these are messy looking skeins. I haven't reskeined them yet, so they have like ties all over the place, but this is what they look like as a skein, or as a set. So it goes from, so this color it's a mixture, it's a really pale gray with hints of brown. Like the brown is really pale, but it has both in there. And it has black speckles. I normally don't do a lot of the really tiny speckles. Oh yeah, there you can see that better. Because they tend to be messier, and I do it in my kitchen, and it's like, I don't want to get my kitchen messy. But I figured it was worth it this time, and I've dyed a whole lot more since the last time I dyed with like dry powder and stuff. And so it wasn't near as messy this time. So that was really good. And then here's the second one. This one has, they all, except for that first one, have all the exact same colors. There's like 5 colors in here, though it's really blended, so you can't really tell. So this one is kind of like a really light pale blue, and there's like blue and green speckles on here. I liked this one a lot because you got some nice flashes of darker green. I find that really exciting. And I like these moments of brighter blue. And then the next one, the green gets darker. And that nice tie getting in the way there. But yeah, it's still a mix of greens and blues. Alright, and here is the next one. This one I think feels pretty foresty. There's still some speckles in there, but it's more subtle. And then here's the darkest and last one. Yeah. And so I think I'll do a cutaway to show you how they look like as balls too. I hand wound the ones I'm keeping into balls for ease of use. Yeah, so here's a look again at my progress so far, and I am really loving the stitches. That pattern is really cool, and it's okay, so I am doing a rather major modification to the pattern. So it's written to be toe up, and the sole of it I think is purled like reverse stockinette, and then it has like a different kind of heel that's also reverse stockinette, and then it continues on. However, because like I don't live with the person I'm making these for, I can't have him try them on as I go, and so I decided to do top down, and because that way if it's too long or too short at the end, I can just rip back a little bit very easily and then adjust it. I find that so much easier to do with cuff down than with toe up. So that's what I'm doing. And I did like a tubular cast on, did like 1 by 1 twisted rib, and then I did the stitch pattern as suggested. I'm doing the Yeah, pretty much. However, when I first started working on these, I got almost this far. And then I had my husband try them on as a reference, and it was so big, huge. Like, it was literally poofy on his leg, and I'm like, what? So I'm using the same needles, 2.25 millimeter, and I'm not a loose knitter, and so I was like, what's going on? Why is this super poofy? I'm following the pattern, but like, it's just a super stretchy pattern. Like, watch. Like, it's just like super stretchy. And so what I decided to do after that was I ripped back to the end of the cuff and I decreased 8 stitches. And so now it's like this, as opposed to, like, I'll include a picture of what it looked like before, but like, it looks a lot better now. It's not so flary, like it's starting to straighten out. So hopefully it should be fine. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the colors kind of fade into each other. It is ridiculously fun to knit. I love this pattern. I highly recommend it. I also recommend getting rid of some stitches before doing like this main part because it's just such a big poofy stitch. Very stretchy. Like, it's not fisherman's rib, but it's in that same family, I would say. So you know how like fisherman's rib or half fisherman's rib is like really stretchy and grows? This does the same. But yeah, I really am pleased with that, and I really want to make myself a pair. I'm like thinking of all the different color combinations I could do. It's like, oh, that'd be so fun. Yeah, it's just, as far as like process goes, I am enjoying this pair and like working on it, even though I have to rip back. I'm enjoying this so much. Like, every time I pick it up, it's like, oh, I get to do this kind of row. Oh, I get to do this row. Oh. And so I only get to work on it like a row or two at a time, but it's really enjoyable. And I'm looking forward to doing more. And my plan for this pair of socks, since I'm like fundamentally changing the direction, I'm not gonna do whatever heel it had. I think I'm just gonna do a normal heel flap and gusset, and then for the sole, I'm just gonna do like a normal. I'll probably do a normal just knit sole. I'll play around. Like, I don't know, a normal heel flap and a reverse stockinette sole would probably look like a weird transition, which is why she chose the reverse stockinette heel to begin with. But I like the fit of the heel flap and gusset, so I'll probably just continue with the stockinette sole. It might not look as good on the bottom, but that's okay. All right, and this next project is pretty special. It's also a gift knit, but it's a gift knit for my husband Nathan, and for years, literally, I've been trying to make him a hat. He is extremely knit-worthy, but he's also very opinionated, and he has like ideas in his head of what he's looking for. And so I try and like come up with like the best questions to kind of draw out what he's thinking. It's like, oh, feel this knitted hat. This is like too thick. Is it too thin? Do you like how it feels? What kind of yarn? Do you like feel this? What do you like about it or not? And then I'll show him like tons of pictures and say, do you like this pattern or this pattern? Like, do you like cables or keep it plain? Or it's like, and what's the fit like? Do you like, and it just doesn't go anywhere. Like, nothing is quite right. And so finally, this year, I was talking to him about that again, and I'm showing him pictures, and we're narrowing it down, and it's like getting farther than we've ever gotten. It's like, oh, this is good. And he's like, I want it to be a really fine rib, and he pointed at a picture. I want it like that, and it was like a flat stockinette like pattern. I'm like, and that's not ribbing. And so he's like, oh, okay, well, but I want it to be kind of like fisherman style. I'm like, okay, like cables? He's like, no, it's more simple. I'm like, okay. And so like a simple rib, kind of fisherman, but kind of plain, really flat, not too much depth. It's like, okay. Okay. And then finally I asked him, like, do you want me to just come up with something? And he's like, yeah, I think you know what I'm going for and I can't express it. And so I just leave it to you. And I'm like, okay. And so it feels like a design brief. Coming from like the graphic design world, it's really common for like people to have like big grandiose ideas with like conflicting elements, and it's like that's normal, like people always do that. And it's like, okay, but there is a commonality here. We're gonna go for it. We're gonna find that kernel that is the thing and we'll run with it. And so that's what I'm trying to do with this project. And so yeah, so I've swatched and I have what I think is a good direction. We'll see. I really hope he likes it. Like I said, he is very knit-worthy and he will wear it even if it's not quite right. But it's actually okay if it's not quite right, because if it's not, I'll just make him another one. So, but anyway, it's just funny. He's actually not that picky. He's just he likes to be part of the design process and be part of it, and I love it. So that's great. Anyway, so originally the yarn I was going to use was the same as the Latvian mittens that I just showed you, the Jameson and Smith. And when I was talking to Nathan about that yarn, he's like, oh, that's really cool. You know, it's like from Shetland and it's from England and it's all rustic and woolen spun and warm. It's like, that's awesome. And then he like touched it after I had washed and blocked the first pair I made. And he's like, it's really rough. I don't think I would want that on my forehead. And I'm like, oh. Okay, bummer. That's just is what it is. And so it's like, okay, I need to find you a softer yarn that is still somehow rustic, because he really likes the whole idea of rustic, but he wants it to be soft. And so when just after hearing lots of people in the yarniverse talk about rustic plus soft at the same time, I immediately think of Beige, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's a fancy yarn. And where are they from? I want to say they're from France. I'll look it up and put it if I'm wrong. But they have woolen spun yarn, which is really nice and warm and poofy and like all that stuff. And it's rustic, but they use lamb's wool, which is softer. And that wool is from Scotland, which Nathan will like. And the version I got also has cashmere. I got the cashmere and lamb's wool. From a design perspective, I stinkin' love their labels. They're so pretty. I love the handwritten look. Like, I geek out about this kind of thing. I really love it. Oh man, my hands are shaking. Sorry, I just drank coffee and I'm still kind of tired and it's just like bleh. But anyway, really love the labels on that. But so I got 3 skeins. Here we go. Where's the nice part? Okay. So here's 2 still in skein format. This is by far the fanciest yarn I have ever bought, and perhaps the most expensive. It was about $25 for 50 grams. But Nathan is worth it. And the color I got is gray brown. It's really nice. I liked it because it's not just a solid. There are bits of gray and brown in there, and like it's just flecked. I really like the kind of mix that it is. It's not picking up on the different colors in there as well as I thought, but I thought this section has some. Oh yeah, there we go. I think the colors in there are just really nice. And the makeup of these is 12.5% cashmere and 87.5% lamb's wool from Scotland, from a family-owned fiber mill. a natural and scoured quality for your dreamy knitting projects. And this is a dreamy knitting project, so there we go. Here is what it looks like in a cake. And for my most recent swatch, I pulled from the inside and outside, so it looks a little poofy. But yeah. Oh, it's so squishy. And then originally I wanted to do a fisherman's rib, or like a half fisherman's rib hat for him. And so I swatched with that pattern and everything just got lost. It looked really messy. And it just did not come out how I hoped it would. And so then I did a little swatch of 1x1 rib, because I remember him thinking like that might be an option, but it had too much depth. The contrast was too much. And so then I was thinking, well, what about broken rib? And so I swatched with that and came up with this. And so I feel like, yeah, I knit it in the round, so it has all these different hanger backers things in the back, but yeah. So for this bottom section, I used a 3.5mm needle, and this top section I used a 4mm, and I tried to make a pretty big swatch. This is like width-wise, it's probably like 6 inches, and then the top, I don't know, maybe like 4 and 3 or something like that. I plan on reusing this yarn in the actual project, so I'm not worried about wasting it. But I did wash and block it. Oh, I forgot to check my gauge after I washed and blocked it. I took it before, but now I need to do it again now that it's washed and blocked. I wonder what the difference is. But anyway, you can't tell, at least I can't tell a huge difference between the two. It's only a 0.5mm different, but I still think I like, the general feel I get is this one feels neater and this one feels a little slightly messier and more open. So I think I'm gonna go with the 3.5mm. So now that I have my swatch, I'll figure out how many stitches to cast on for his size, and we'll go from there. My hope is that, well, one thing I like about broken rib is that it looks very flat. There's not a lot of like depth of going forward and backward like you would have with 1x1, and it has these more pronounced columns of knit stitches, which I like. Hopefully it's still not too messy. With this being woolen spun yarn, I feel like the stitches, like there's not much stitch definition. Whereas if you had something like this yarn, this would have like really clear stitch definition and you would see everything. Whereas this makes a more homogeneous fabric. So I'm hoping this will be still good. We'll see. I think it feels really nice. It definitely gets that rustic and soft at the same time vibe. Like that's a real thing I'm finding out. It's like, oh, so that's what that means. It's nice. Very fancy yarn. Yeah, I like the poofiness of it. I think it'll be very warm. My plan for his hat is to be like really like snug on the top, not slouchy at all, but to be fitted here and then a triple brim. And so we'll try out for that, and that's why I got 3 skeins. Originally I was hoping to do something with 100 grams, but I also at the time I was thinking I was going to do fisherman's rib, which I believe uses more yarn than usual, but with a triple brim, it's just going to be more knitting. So I think I'm safe, but if I need more, I can go find some. But I held it double for this swatch. When I first swatched, I held it single, and it just felt, I don't know, really fine. And I know he doesn't want a really fine hat, so I'm thinking this will be good. He's felt some worsted weight hats, and those felt too thick for him. And so the fingering weight was too thin, so I'm thinking, okay, well, if I hold it double, it's kind of DK, which is in the middle, so we'll go for that. Yeah, and so that's like my really special gift knit. And what's fun about that one is I'm creating the pattern for it myself, and so I know he really would appreciate that. And yeah, so I have kind of 2 hat patterns on the go, Sego Baby and this one for Nathan. And I'm hoping well, I'll definitely keep notes and track everything as I go, so hopefully I can make it a real pattern someday. I'm already looking at other Beige Bouche yarn and thinking I really want one for me. And I want them in all the colors. So I won't be making a whole ton for me, but I would like to make one. And I think that would be good anyway, because if I need to make one for my size, if I'm writing the pattern, I'm going to make one. I'm going to write design instructions for my size, so I might as well make one. And so I'm just trying to decide what colors to use for that. Yeah, so that's that special hat, and that wraps it up for the gift knitting. I'm debating whether or not to throw in another pair of socks. We'll see. And then as for the exciting sweaters that I'm really excited about, there are so many sweaters that I would love to make, but I've started on 2. The first one is Nurtured by Andrea Mowry, and it's using a yarn that I've shown you before. This is Lamb's Pride worsted, and it is 85% wool and 15% mohair. It's the color Mulberry. This is probably my favorite color in the entire world. In real life, it's slightly darker than this as it's showing up a bit brighter. Let's see. I'm wondering if you can hear the kids talking. Anyway, but yeah, I have 6 skeins of these, and I swatched. I've done more swatching in the last few weeks than ever. So this is my swatch with her stitch pattern. It is so fun! Oh my goodness. Thankfully, I hit gauge the first time with the recommended needles, so that made me really happy. And if I need to, again, I'm just going to use this yarn in the sweater, but I figured I'd save it until I need it. Yeah. It's a single ply, and originally I was thinking of making the Tulip sweater by Melody Hoffman. Is that right? Melanie Hoffman? Be meanderings. And I still really, really want to make that sweater. But I kind of decided I want to make that sweater in unspun. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll wait until I get some of that. And then I was thinking oh, what? Now I really need a purpose for this yarn. And so then I started looking around. Then I came across the Felix pullover by Amy Christoffers, and I really liked it. And it's oh, and I was looking at different projects that other people had made with this yarn, and a lot of the plain stockinette kind of patterns looks really good. It looks so nice, and I was thinking, oh, that would go really well because it's stockinette with a really nice detail here. And so I thought about it, and I looked at my size, how much yardage do I need, and I actually would have had a lot of yarn left over. And I was well, in some cases that's kind of nice, but I actually want to use all this yarn in one project, kind of make use of it and take advantage of it, because sometimes I imagine in the future I'll have less yarn that I could use, and then I could use it for a Felix. And so I kept looking around, and then I remembered, oh no, I came across this other person in the projects who was using this yarn, and she had made a Nurtured by Andrea Mowry, and I just saw that and was like, oh, that looks amazing. Let's do that. And so I did. And I remember, like, I watch Andrea Mowry's podcast, and she has said before, like, in answering the question, like, what pattern could you recommend for like hand spun or more uneven or oddly textured yarn or whatever? And she recommended her Nurtured sweater for that. And I was thinking, yeah, for a single ply, I bet that would go really well. In case there are any thick and thin spots, because you're more likely to have variation in a single ply than in a plied, because the more plies you have, the more even and averaged it gets. However, with this being like more commercially spun, like you're not going to run into that too much, but there is a little bit of variation. And so I just really loved how the texture pops. So I went with it, and I did actually cast on. We are going on a trip next week, and I wanted to work with this yarn on that trip, and it's mainly because my mother-in-law bought me this yarn, and I want her to see me using it, and kind of because kind of as an appreciation thing, like if she's around me as I'm working on something with it, like she gets more gratification and I get the gratification of doing it together, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like it's more of a shared experience. And also I really selfishly want to work on a sweater, and I love the yarn, so it all works out. Yeah, so I've started on the sleeve. The pattern is knit bottom up, and you do the sleeves first, then you do the bottom of the body, and then you join everything together and do the yoke. I'm talking as if I have so much experience, but this is the first time I've kind of done this, I guess. But anyway, so I have this much. This took hardly any time at all, like maybe an hour. And like I cast on, started the ribbing, started all this. I figured out like my decreases and like my rate and how many rows in between each, or increases rather. And I'm just zipping along. I learned, like, I will say the best part about doing the swatch, aside from realizing gauge, is I figured out how to read the stitch. And so like now I know, it's like, oh, if my stitches look like this on my needles, then I need to do this. Or if they look like that, I need to do that. And so it's like, oh. So now I don't even have to refer to a pattern in order to do this. Like I can just pick this up and finish the sleeve. So it's really intuitive that way. Trying to think. And it is really helpful to understand like how to read your knitting, because as you're adding increases, you have to change your order. Like sometimes you do like a knit slip, or sometimes you do a slip knit, and adding a stitch on either side like alters that. So anyway, it's just really helpful to be able to read it. And I feel like that could have been a little bit clearer in the pattern, but it's so well written, and it's obvious if you mess up, so it's not that big a deal. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, I spent like maybe an hour working on that, and I realized, whew, this is really fun, and it's going really, really fast. I need to save it for this trip next week. And so I put that down, and so I'll work on it later. And then that's when I started the morning coffee socks, because like, okay. And so that's been a really nice filler, because I'm super enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. And then the next fun selfish sweater knit that I have going on, I haven't cast on, but I have swatched. And this is to make the Chunky Souffle by Laura Penrose. Is that right? Yeah. Or Penrose Knits, or however you want to call her. And this one I felt pretty excited about, because, or it felt special because this is the first time I've purchased a pattern like as soon as it came out with the like release discount code, and I got the recommended yarn. I pretty much never use the suggested yarn that goes with the pattern. I always like kind of hodgepodge it or use whatever I feel like using. But this time I'm doing both, and this was part of the drop sale, and so it was so affordable. And so when I made my Wool Warehouse purchase, I went ahead and got some drop swish, which is what she recommends in the pattern. And like with the sale, I got 11 of these. These are 50-gram balls. And it was like $34 for everything. That's awesome. And so I got it in the color Bordeaux. And my plan for this is for this to be my Christmas sweater. And it's like a really thick yarn, and so it shouldn't take very long to make. And so I'm hoping like I could probably do it in a couple weeks if I need to. And so that's kind of my idea. Yeah, I wasn't totally confident about what the color would look like when I ordered it, but when I Googled drop swish Bordeaux, and I looked at all the images that comes up, it's like, well, I don't know which one of these is right, but I like all of them, so it's probably a safe purchase. And so, yeah, so I would have been happy if it was redder, if it was deeper or whatever, but I also really like how it is. I think it's nice. I'm hopeful that it'll work out. I actually really like that it's kind of a muted, dusty wine red. I think it adds to the classiness of it. And so anyway, here's my swatch. And this was with the recommended needles. I forget what they were, but my gauge is slightly small. And so I'm getting half a stitch or a whole stitch extra within my 4 inches. So I'm gonna have to go up a needle size and re-swatch, I think. But this was the first swatch I made of this whole series of stuff. I actually did this rather a while ago. But I just wanted to cast on, and I'm like, oh, I should swatch. So I made myself swatch, and it took way longer than I thought it would. And I'm like, this is so boring. Now I totally understand why people don't swatch. It's really boring. And but anyway, I think it'll be worth it. So I'm just gonna redo it and hopefully meet gauge. We'll see. Yeah, so this one's not like a huge priority to get done. It's probably like one of my last ones for the year probably, but we'll see. We'll see. I would like to get it done before Christmas, so we'll see how it fits in. I'm anticipating I'll make a size 3 or 4. I have enough yarn for both according to the yardage estimates, but I'm not sure how much positive ease I want. I've found with the few like shirts that I've already made, I don't really like that much positive ease. It doesn't really look good on me. And so I was like, okay, well, what I should do is just measure like maybe this sweater or some other sweater that is like potentially similar to what the chunky souffle will be like, and then maybe go from there. We'll see. That would be an idea. This next project is pseudo dream knitting / whip that's going to be frogged. But yeah. So at the beginning of 2021, I actually did cast on my very first garment. And it was the cardigan called Einrum KBG12 by Kristen Brynja Gunnarsdottir. And it was, like I said, the very first garment I'd ever tried. I chose it because I wanted a really simple cardigan. I just had like a particular image in my head, and this got the closest of all the ones that I saw, and I wanted to find one that used 2 fingering weight yarns held together, which this one does. However, it wasn't the clearest about how much yarn you need. Like, even now, looking at it, after knitting a whole bunch in between then and now, it really sounds like, at least from the printed out pattern, like that you only need 250 grams for the entire thing. But I didn't check, I don't think I calculated the yardage on that. And so if you have a different like yardage per gram ratio, then that's going to change. And so I figured like, oh, if I use 3 fingering weight skeins, 300 gram skeins, and that should be enough because that's 300 grams, not 250. However, I don't think it's going to be enough. But I do love it. So this is what I have. I actually really love it, and I'm kind of sad that I probably have to rip it out. I decided to marl the colors and do stripes. The original is not, like, it all uses the same color, but I decided to do this because I had 3 different colors of yarn. Yeah, it's so soft. The yarn is Yarn Bee. They're authentic hand-dyed. The colors are Chestnut Ember and Aged Gold and Natural Slate. And yeah, I think it's really nice how they have like the different, like there's some speckles and tonality in there. It's just really fun. And it's 100% merino, and it's just like the softest yarn. And it's also very affordable. And you can get it at Hobby Lobby, and they have like every other week it's on sale, and it's like 30% off or something. So when it's on sale, it's like $10 for 100% merino, like tonal skein. So it's like, oh, that's a good deal. Let's see. It has this nice detail between like the front panel and the back, and it also, I think, goes on the sleeves and stuff. But yeah, I did the body up until the sleeves, and then I started the sleeves, and I tried to be too smart for myself, and I decided to do like 2 at a time sleeves because I've heard like, oh, that's great, because then whatever you decide to do for one, you don't have to remember it for the next one because you're doing both at the same time. But pulling from like the inside and outside of 2 skeins at once, the yarn management just got so crazy tangled. So I just put it down simply because of that. And so anyway, I started on the sleeves, but it didn't get very far. And then as far as like how much yarn is left, I don't think I can get 2 sleeves and a yoke out of this much. Like, it's just not very much. So, for reference. Yeah, so that gave me some pause, and I was like, oh dear, I don't think that's going to work. So even though I really like the pattern, I really like the yarn, I like the combination, I don't want to have to go out and search for 3 more skeins just to finish this. So I'm just going to do something else with it. I have found other patterns that I can use this yarn for, so it's like, okay, I'm just going to rip the band-aid off and do it that way. So this is going to get frogged. But the orangey color, the Chestnut Ember, that already has a plan. So Nathan and I recently had our 7th anniversary, and for part of the celebration, my parents took us out to eat, and we went to the Silver Fork Lodge, and it's so fun. I recommend it if you're ever in the area. It's really cute. And apparently, the traditional or whatever gift for a 7th anniversary is like wool and paper. And you couldn't come up with a more perfect combination for me and Nathan. So like, obviously me, all the wool, like just give me the yarn, this is great. And then Nathan keeps sketchbooks, and Speaking up, he's just pulling up here now. It's really early. I might have to cut this off. But anyway, so my parents gave me this beautiful yarn. And this is also chestnut ember in the same yarn as the other. It's a different dye lot, but he's looking through the window. That's so funny. I told him I was podcasting today, so he probably knows what's going on. Anyway, so it's a slightly different dye lot, and so the tone is spot on. It's like the same kind of orange. These two are just a bit darker than the original that I had. And so my plan is to try and over dye all of them to kind of even them out and kind of get a little bit of extra dye onto that paler version. And so then I'm still going to alternate skeins, but I think it'll be less stripy if I over dye it a little bit. But I definitely want to keep to the same, I want to stay true to this color if I can. That's my goal. And what I want to make with it is the bibliophile sweater. It's like a turtleneck. I want to do the turtleneck version by Alicia Plummer. I really want to make it, and I want to make it with this yarn because I think it'll be amazing. I think it'll only need the 3 skeins, and with how soft this yarn is, it's going to be like, as Kristen from Woolen Vine Yarns would say, it's like wearing buttered kittens. It's like the best description. But yeah, so I'm very excited for that. And originally I was like, as soon as I decided like what to do with that, like I wanted to cast on right away. However, I held back because I know all the things that I've already talked about, but I almost did that instead of the nurtured with the Lamb's Pride yarn. But then I was thinking, like, timing wise, like it's a good time of year to make a really thick sweater because then I can wear it during the winter in the coldest months, and plus it's thicker, so it'll be quicker to knit. And then when I'm done with that, I can cast on my fingering weight sweater that will take ages. And so it's like, okay, I can just take my time with that one, and that will be lovely and look forward to, and I can like over dye and knit it kind of at my own pace and not feel rushed about it. And so that'll be nice, and it'll be more appropriate for like the end of winter and spring and that sort of thing. So that's my idea for that. And then going along with anniversary stuff, my parents gave Nathan sketchbooks and a book to read and some nice pens and various things like that. So definitely they know us well, and those are right up our alleys. We also got to go to a bed and breakfast in Heber, and this was at the end of September. And so the leaves were starting to change, and it was just gorgeous and lovely. And so I took a clip of some of that, and so I'll include that here. And yeah, it was just so lovely to, be in the changing leaves and just get away for a little bit. And as a surprise anniversary present, Nathan got me an overhead arm for a tripod that I can stick my phone on. And he had heard me mention wanting something like that for like overhead shots, because I've tried a couple times. If you followed along, you may have seen of me like trying to film myself knitting, and that is really hard. Like I've literally tried like doing it here. I've tried like setting my phone on like a tall stack of albums and books and stuff to like then do it, but then you still have like the stack in the frame. And then I have like this really mini tripod thing that I'm using now, and I've tried like wedging it in my kitchen cabinets to like then have like the floor as the background, and that pseudo works, but it's really like iffy, like it's gonna fall at any moment. But we do have a legit normal tripod that I can use that's tall and everything. I just haven't broken it out because I figure I can set this mini thing on top of something and that works. But for like overhead stuff, I'll just use the normal tripod And I'll use this cool arm he got, so it'll like stick out nice and long properly, and I can kind of put it anywhere and stick it over a table or whatever. And yeah, so that was just really thoughtful of him. Again, we tease each other mercilessly about our hobbies, and yet we support each other. Yeah, so that was super sweet of him. So I think that's about it for all the knitting stuff. As far as life updates go, a lot's gone on. Let's see, what's gone first? I told you about our anniversary trip. The big volunteer project that I was working on was organizing a retreat for the women at our church. And we're planning on like a max 70 people to go, and it's like a 3-day thing in Park City. And I've gone before, and so I kind of knew what to expect. And like in the past, I've helped out with like smaller stuff before, but this was the first time when I was kind of like the head coordinator. And so it's like, okay, we've got 20 volunteers, 3-day thing, like 70 people coming, got a plan. And so I actually really enjoyed it, and it really wasn't that bad. It was just like more stressful towards the end, and because it's like crunch time when you actually have to do stuff, you're not in planning mode, you're in doing mode. But anyway, it went really well, and we had actually more people come than we were expecting, which was really cool. My job of chief secretary for everybody and making sure everybody has what they need in order to do their jobs. So I was doing that, but my kind of personal baby for the retreat was the gift bags, because the gift bags are kind of always a thing, and it's like, ooh, what's going to be in them this time? And with my background in marketing, and I've worked on like conferences and stuff before, it's like, oh, I love me some swag. Like, I have a soft spot. Like, I like it. I like planning it. I like designing it. I like getting it. I like collecting it. It's like, well, let's use it. So I kind of like made that my thing, and so that was my project, and I decided to come up with some custom bags, a mug, and yeah, I think those were the 2 custom things. And then I found like a nice notebook, pens, water bottle, like, normal disposable kind, some snacks. Oh, and a book. Yeah, so we included like a nice book in there too. So the theme for the retreat, like the title, I guess you could say, was called Lead Me in Your Truth. And it's kind of like, I wanted to help pick a topic this year that like I needed help on. And so like, hey, if I find an area where I'm struggling, then I can get everyone else thinking about the same thing, and with all our minds together and everybody else's experience, I can be helped. So it's very selfishly motivated, but hopefully it will actually help other people too, because if I'm having these questions, I'm probably not the only one. And yeah, so the idea is, how do we get into the Bible more? How do we like read it where it's actually useful and helpful, and approach it well, and use our hearts and use our minds, and so we're actually thinking, and it's like doing all of these things. And it's not just, because there's like a million ways to like read the Bible and not get anything out of it, but like, are there helpful ways? Are there like, what should our expectations be? Like, how should we approach this sort of thing? And so it's just like any step, a baby step, whatever, like in a more helpful direction. Let's do that. So the book we gave away is called Women of the Word by Jen Wilkin. I borrowed it when I was planning like a few months ago, and I read it then, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually really helpful. And it's my favorite chapter in there was about patience. And it's like, we come with all sorts of expectations and shoulds about what we should be doing, and oh, it should look like that, we should do that, like all these things. Like, you know what? Take it off. Like, it's fine. Like, there's different seasons. It's gonna look like different things in different times, and we don't need to have that pressure on ourselves. And it's mainly about a relationship with God anyway, and so I was like, okay. So anyway, I found that very helpful. And yes, there are also some very practical suggestions and helpful tips in there. But I thought the best part of the book was like initial expectations and ways to orient your heart and your mind as you read, and so that you're not like hitting your head against a brick wall trying to do this thing. It's like it's actually working and you're building slowly. And anyway, so if you're interested, I recommend that book. I found it helpful. I don't have it here to show you because we ran out of copies. So let's see. So, but anyway, for the custom mugs and bags, I decided to do some paintings, or like to paint the illustration kind of a thing. And I'm thinking like, okay, let's do something like not too literal, but the idea of growth. And since we're in Utah, I'll do like high desert kind of plants. And so I did that one. I used just like an ink and a paintbrush to do these. And this is supposed to be like lavender. And then this one, I think this one's Jupiter's beard. These are all just kind of like abstracted things. And then of course the honeybees. We talked about honey and God's word being sweet and that sort of thing. And then this one, was it Queen Anne's lace? This one was one of my favorites, like echinacea. Here's another one of those. And then, yeah, so just kind of that same idea. I have a thistle. I didn't use everything in the designs, but oh, that's the one. Anyway, so my idea for how I wanted to like construct this, I figured I would just do a whole bunch of these on paper, scan them in, and then using my software, I'll just like hodgepodge it together into a layout. And I did the same thing with the text. Like, I just painted the words a whole bunch of times and then picked my favorites. And the bag turned out like this. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I just used some website that you like upload your design to, pick out what bag and decide colors and stuff, then they make it. And so I believe this is screen printed. It's using a rather thick ink because it's bumpy, but I really like our colors were like green and yellow, and yeah, I thought it came out pretty well. Oh yeah, I had the dandelion fluffs in there too. But yeah, that was pretty exciting. And I definitely wanted to pick a bag with a gusset so that I could use it as a project bag. And funnily enough, I have some knitting friends at church, and one of them came up to me at the retreat and was like, "Oh, I like these bags. You could use them for a project bag." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's why I picked them." So even in this, I have knitting on the brain. And then the mugs came out like this. I really liked that I could pick an option where the design kind of flows all the way around. And so it's not like just in the front or just in the back. Yeah. And they're like dishwasher, microwave safe and everything, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, so that's the story for that. Wow, it was a flurry that week before the retreat. So not only was it like crunch time for like packing the bags, like getting everything together, answering last minute questions, making sure like different rooms at the hotel we were going to were open, and it's like all this sort of thing. But Nathan was away at a conference that whole week, and so I was like single parenting it. I was like, oh, this is hard. And yeah, so it was a bit rough. yeah, but my parents helped out and watched the kids a few times, and that was really helpful for letting me like get some stuff done and just getting a little bit of a break. Yeah, so thank you, Mom and Dad. I know you watched this. I appreciate you. um, yeah, so that was a thing, and then Nathan got back very late Thursday night, like almost midnight, and then Friday midday I left for the retreat. So I was like, see ya, bye. And yeah, and then the various things that happened during that week too. So that's the week I got my hair cut. It was meant to be a treat. So I got home by myself, just feeling like the pits, and oh well. um, the bangs that she did were actually like low and more tapered, and that felt like I was trying to be something that it wasn't. And so I got home and like, okay, straight across. But the bangs were like super layered and shaggy that she had done, and it didn't matter like how short I went, like they kept looking shaggy. They won't not look shaggy because there's so many layers in there, and it's like I just have to wait for it to grow out so I can make them straight. Oh well. Hence the headband, which helps push it down to make them like not so high. Like part of the reason I was just kind of like about it was because like, okay, I have to get up and stand in front of 70 people with a bad haircut, or at least one that I don't feel good in. And so I was like, oh well, the things you get over, I suppose. But as far as the length, I really like it. I really like the length. Super happy with that. It was just the bangs issue. Another thing we had going on that week. So Lydia, my 6-month-old, she like over the last few months we've been working with her. Like she's been kind of having a flatter spot on her head, and so we've been like working on like tilting her different ways as she's sleeping or whatever, kind of even that out. And so we've been doing that, but that wasn't working. And so the doctor recommended we send her to a physical therapist to kind of see like what's going on, what's causing this, and see if we can correct it. And so we did that. And she's like, oh, she has muscle tightness. There's a fancy word for it. But basically, she can look all the way one way, but not all the way the other. And so that makes her like stay on a particular side of her head. And so like, okay. And so we're doing like these exercises and stuff with her, and that's cleared up, so that's really good. However, the flat spot is still there, and it's such that she has to wear a helmet. And so during the week that like is all leading up to this retreat, she got her helmet in and fitted and everything. And so that's really good, but it's also like that, okay, I know this is good for her and she needs this, but it also makes me really sad, and you can feel like all the mom guilt for like like my baby needs this and I couldn't do it right, and like oh yeah, because it's just like a whole mess of feelings. But you know, it's actually like I thought I was going to be like, I mean, like a helmet on your baby is really conspicuous, let's be honest. And I thought I was going to be like super embarrassed and like nervous about going out and about with her like that, and I like being afraid of what people thought. And like for the first couple days I felt like that, but then afterwards, like I have 3 kids 3 and under. I'm too busy to care. and and that's been really true. And I've just really forgotten, like I know, like I know like this is good for her, and like I'm doing the best that I can for her. And so it's like, okay, so like with that plus just doing what needs to be done, I forget to worry about what other people think. And so that's been much better than I expected. And yeah, so the only reason I bring that up is because in various like footage coming up or whatever that you see, you'll probably see her with a helmet. And so that's just kind of an explanation for that. But yeah, so it's actually like she's worn it for I think about a month now, maybe a little bit over. and oh my goodness, it has made such a difference. So if you or anyone you know is like contemplating whether or not to do it, I say do it, because it's worked so well, and it's worked a lot faster than I thought too. So she only has to wear it for like maybe 3 months. I'm hoping she'll get it off before Christmas. We'll see. After the retreat, we went up to Sun Valley in Idaho to go to the Trailing of the Sheep Festival. And I teased you about this before, and I showed a clip from last year when we went. And I'm so glad we got to go again this year. We went with our friend Damon and Nathan's parents, and it was so much fun. So I took a lot of footage and pictures and everything from that. I'm going to make a separate video all about that, so that's coming up soon. So yeah, keep an eye out. I think that's going to be pretty fun. We'll see how much footage I took. I think it was a lot. And we also had Veronica's 2nd birthday, and so that was a lot of fun. She is super into moons and airplanes right now. And so I figured, okay, airplanes would be an easy birthday theme. And so we just kept it really simple. It was just like us and my parents. And so I made cupcakes that look like clouds-ish, and then put like airplanes on top that you can like throw, and they kind of glide a little bit. And anyway, so that was just a lot of fun. And then we also, after that, had some family in town for a few days. And during that time, I, to my amazement, found myself with an afternoon all by myself. And because Nathan and his brother-in-law, who was visiting, were off doing something, and my parents were looking after the kids. And I'm like, oh, I really do have an afternoon all to myself. Everyone's okay. Everyone's taken care of, and I can do anything. This is amazing. And so I knew I wanted to get started on Nathan's Christmas hat, and so I went to Blazing Needles, which, I mean, okay, if I'm looking for fancy yarn, then there's one place to go, and that is Blazing Needles. And I knew they had Biche Bouche, and that's where I picked it up. And I probably spent like an hour or more there. Like, I knew what I was looking for, but I wanted to like check everything else out too. And honestly, it had been so long since I could just take my time and peruse a yarn store without like kids. And it was really, really nice. However, I will say, like, after I was done with that, I was like, I miss them. I miss my kids. I want to go back. And so that was a nice kind of turn of events, I suppose. And the last thing from all this crazy life update stuff, I was working on some freelance design, and I really don't do much. It's just more when, like, I don't know, for some reason, like, something seems necessary and like, oh, I should do this. And a friend of mine has a chocolate business, and she makes these beautiful truffles, and I'll put a picture, and she's absolutely amazing. And anyway, a few years ago, I did her branding and her packaging. And so over the years, she, like, maybe once or twice a year, she has some updates to something or other, and so I'll do that. And this time, she got her logo officially trademarked and registered and everything. And this is the first design of mine to be like official and legal in that way. And so it's like, oh, like, well, it's not a reflection of like whether a logo or design is like good or bad. It's like, it's official. And so like that felt really cool. Anyway, so I had to update the logo with the like registered symbol on all the different things, and save out some stuff. And I also got to design like a little Christmas packaging thing for her, and so that was a lot of fun. So yeah, definitely check her out. I'm not sure if she ships outside of Utah or not, but if you're in Utah, check her out. Yeah, the flavors the look, oh, the best, definitely. I'm not just saying that. Yeah, so I think that's well and truly everything. I feel like this has gone so long, but it's just been so much. It's really nice to sit here again and chat with you and just go over everything and catch up and let me know how you've been. Like, where are you at? Or you're like, oh, I'm not even thinking about Christmas yet. It's not even Thanksgiving. It's barely November. Or are you like, oh yeah, I'm knee deep in the wrapping paper. Like, where are you on that? Are you a houseplant kind of person? Are you a black thumb kind of person? What are you looking forward to this fall and holiday season? I would love to hear. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, wonderful rest of your week. Yeah, thank you for joining me. If you'd like, you can like and subscribe this video. That helps me out. Otherwise, I'll just see you next time. Thank you and happy knitting.